Welcome to the 8th video in Indie Resources, how to build a browser-based MMORG. This is Halls of Valhalla. This video we're going to work on div tags and CSS Sheet. We're only going to spend one video, probably a quick video, on it because it's really not complicated, and a lot of what you need to learn with style sheets and the div tags you can learn in HTML and doing that, and most of it you kind of learn as you go. When you say, hey, I want this kind of look, you'll go look it up on the internet and find it. So I'm just going to kind of give you the basics, and you guys can run from that like we have been doing. Let me go ahead and log in. And I've kind of went ahead and already done everything, and then I'll go through and explain what I did. Basically what I'm going for is on our current page that we have, it's simple, it's ugly, there's nothing special. This is a project I was working on and kind of give up on, that I just want to kind of show you an example of what a CSS style sheet can do, on how you can create a picture, and you can put your text boxes in here and actually have links and stuff, and links here, and really make things a lot different and dynamic. Now, of course, this is a project I'm working on. It's not centered or anything, but just shows you how you can make things a lot more dynamic to make it a lot prettier than basically what we have here. And that's what we're going to kind of do now. Now it looks kind of basic, but this is where we're going to get a start from. I didn't get a whole lot of graphics, and I do appreciate the graphics I got. The other ones weren't cut up, and they weren't the backgrounds weren't transparent, so that's why I didn't use them. Now, if you use these graphics from our site and you're using an older version of Internet Explorer, they're not going to be transparent. You're not going to see it if you have a white background, but when we go to change this background, you will, if they can't do PNG, these are GIFs, so you're fine, but when we get into PNG transparencies, make sure you have the newest version of Internet Explorer, or I recommend Mozilla Firefox. Anyway, what I've done here is I've went ahead and created a CSS style sheet. So go ahead and open up context and go to just create a new file and call it style.css. And the way we're going to link style.css, let's start with battle.php. Go ahead and open it up. If you notice here, I've added new. First thing I did was I added include once logo.php. I want the logo to be on every single page, so there's no point in going in there and putting a link to it. So I created a brand new page. You can go ahead and create it now, logo.php, and this is what we're going to have in it. We're going to put our div ID, which is login, which we're going to go over in a second. Div align is center, so it's always in the center of the page, and then we're going to do the image CRC, basically just point to the image in our images directory and the width and the height of the image, and then we don't want a border around it, so we put border 0, and that's it. That's all we need. So whenever your browser goes to read this, it's going to go ahead and include this, and that way you have a logo on every single page that you include once logo.php. Here's where the CSS style sheet. If you notice, I ended the PHP because this is HTML. We have to have it outside the HTML. So I ended it, and then I started it again when I knew, I have no idea why that's there. When I knew that it would be when I need PHP again. But anyway, we're going to put a link to our style sheet, which is this right here. Link href style.css, and then we have our style sheet type text.css or /css. It is important to understand why that is, because you're just basically going to use that in every one you want your style sheet. Your style sheet does not have to be named style.css, and you can have multiple style sheets. You can name style 1, style 2, style 3. That way you don't completely clog up a whole style page with tons of different styles. Your div ID. Div ID, let me pull this up that I have to kind of get an explanation. Think of divs as like boxes that you create. You have a div here, and if you notice on this is actually a div in itself, this whole box right here. This is a div tag, this is a div tag, this is a div tag, and this is actually built into there. But think of each one of them as a box, and that's what you're creating. You're creating this box that text is going to be inside of, or a picture or whatever, and you can separate them like this. Now, to go back to our actual style sheet, you'll see here, body, of course, is your main body of your page, and I made the background color the F's, which is white. If you see here, we can actually change this to black by simply changing, oops, number lock's not on. And if we want to save that and then refresh our battle, we now have a black background. And of course we can't see our text, so we don't want to keep that, so I'm going to change that back. And that will change the background of every single page that is pointing to this style sheet. So it's one simple fix. Now let's go to our, let's see, where did we start at? We're at login 2 here, which login 2 is actually, let me refresh this, is pointing to if we weren't logged in and we tried to go to the battle.php where it says you need to log in. That's what that is. And oops, let's go back. And it's login 2 and then a div align center. So let's go to our style. Login 2 is right here. Okay, this is what we're going to look at. Here's the tag. If you notice, it starts with a number sign. Login 2. Everything in between these brackets here is part of login 2. Position absolute. I would recommend going in and reading about positions, because there's position absolute, relative, and a few others. I always use absolute, and you're probably almost always going to use absolute. Your left align is where it aligns at the left of the page, and we're going to go over that here in one sec. The top is how far down in pixels that it comes down from the top, and then your width and your height is your actual width and height of the div tag. And like I was showing here, that's the size of this whole box right here. And then your Z-index is like layers in Photoshop, or layers in a lot of different things. If the Z, and it starts with the lowest, the Z-index layer of 1 or 0 actually will be the bottom. 1 will be above that, 2 will be above that. So if you notice here, div 3 index equals 1. If I was to take this, and this was the actual div 2, it would sit over like this, just like that. That's how I was able to place this text box on top of this picture, is because this is a div ID of 2 and this is a div ID of 1. That all it is layering, so that helps you be able to put things on top of each other. Standard HTML, you're not going to be able to really do that. That's why you need the CSS and the div tags. And let's go back to here. So let's kind of fool around with this a little bit. Let's save this. First, let's look at our, and if okay, this div tag of login right here. This is this is just for this login where it says not logged in. Once I'm past that, I want to end that div tag. So I put a slash, and I'll show you why this is important here in one sec. But actually, I'll show you right here. This is your first div tag. Change this font a little smaller to where it's not killing us. Let's say this is div of login. This box right here. If you didn't end this tag before you started on this div, it would actually place this div. It's got me on text. I hate Paint. It would actually place it inside here. So while outside of the div tag it's relative to your page, inside the, so in other words, if I ended this div tag right here and said, okay, login div, and then I put a slash. Let me go ahead and put it so you guys can kind of understand. Let's say I ended that div tag, and of course that looks a little silly because this would be text and it'd be coding, but anyway, if I was to make the left of this 10 and the top 10, then it would be 10 from the top of the page and 10 to the left. If I was to actually take this div tag, and we're thinking in coding, and put it below this to where we put div 2 inside of div 1, the 10 would be 10 from the top of the login div and the top and the side of the div. So that's actually what I did right here when I was working on this. Was I didn't make this div tag from the whole page. I made it from actually inside this div tag. So this div tag is inside this one. So it's actually, let's say 20 by 30. If I wouldn't have did that, then it would have been 20 from the top and 30 over here. That way, if I move this box, no matter where I move it, this tag stays with it at all times. I hope I didn't confuse y'all with it. It's if so, just ask on the forums. But it's